Call the meeting to order and stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You can see Josh isn't here, so you get the pleasure of listening to me. Hopefully very little. He's on his way. He was in Chambers yet at 7, but apparently they closed at 7. So, before I move on, item number 6, which is the update on efforts of City of Seward into our Seward School District that Ellen has here. We're moving that to the end. Josh wants to be here for that. So he will be on his way, and we'll switch seats at some point. All right, disclosure of Open Meetings Act and other notifications. This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The City of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of the meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of the meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The City of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of the items on the agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Laskey.
Here.
Back. Here. Pembroke.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Pike.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Hands.
Here.
Item number 1 is consideration of approval of draft minutes of April 21.
Move approved. Second.
You've been approved. Register your votes. Display vote.
Voting in favor, Laskey. Back. Campbell. Fritz. Pike. Singleton. Schmidt. Hands. Motion carried.
Look how smooth that goes. Item number 2, consideration of consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Register your votes. Display votes.
Voting in favor, Hand. Schmidt. Singleton. Pike. Fritz. Campbell. Back. Laskey. Motion carried.
Item number 3 is consideration of an interlocal cooperation agreement with Seward County for natural disaster emergency mutual aid assistance. Is somebody here from the county? Diana, you want to address that?
Do you want me to come to the podium?
If you can.
No, I know I look like I do, but I think I can do it. This is a interlocal agreement that we've set up between, the county and the different townships, and also with the City of Seward, in response to the tornado that happened at Beaver Crossing and how things were kind of chaotic and we didn't have really a plan in place. And so, basically we're just trying to get something in place in the eventuality, but hopefully never have to use it. And I was told to come because you might have questions. And I don't know if I have answers, but I can find out the answers.
Any of the council have questions? Did you review it, Kelly?
I have reviewed it and I don't have any concerns from my point of view.
No questions? We would need a motion.
I move for approval.
It's a resolution. So we actually introduced a resolution.
I'll introduce the resolution.
That is a resolution, it says underneath there. Resolutions. What do we do with resolutions? The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2015-09. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not, please register your votes. Display vote.
Voting in favor, Schmidt. Hands. Singleton. Pike. Fritz. Campbell. Back. Laskey. Motion carried.
Item number 4 is consideration of limiting parking to one side on East Ridge Drive from North Hill Crest Drive. North from Hill Crest Drive. Jonathan, is Jonathan here?
I'm in I did bring pictures that show the congestion. Basically, the problem is anytime there's an event at Concordia, people park on both sides of Eastridge Avenue, and so anybody approaching the stop sign on Eastridge headed toward Hillcrest, they can't see the traffic on Hillcrest turning onto Eastridge, and vice versa. And both my husband and I have had near collisions, and we've seen other people had near collisions for this, so, I can show the pictures.
Sure.
You can see that it's pretty much one lane, and you get parking on both sides.
Want to pass it around?
Okay. And we're really just asking that, parking be restricted on one side for like 100 yards or something, just to clear up that intersection up to the stop sign.
John, you have anything to add?
We addressed the parking at these events one other time before. I guess the one thing that we never looked at is the adjacent streets. And I think what she brings up is a valid point. I think that we've been kind of handling this with, if we take 100 foot back from the stop signs, that gives us a clear way and to see approaching and traffic, as well as traffic coming in. But not only on Eastridge, but on Fairview and Plainview as well. We'll take a look at that and I can come back to you with the results of what we want to do.
What side of the street is that, 32?
32.
And on most of our 32
Hillcrest is
streets?
36.
Okay, Hillcrest is 36. But on our 32 foot, do we do two-way or one-way on most of them?
Typically they're two-way,
Mm-hmm.
but if we do no parking 100 foot back from the stop line, that'll give us 4 or 5 cars worth of stacking to approach the stop sign. I think that'll make a much safer, much better intersection.
Yeah, because I would agree not to close it completely down.
No.
I would agree with the 100 feet to give you more of a approach view, but not to shut it all the way.
So that's,
Because that's one of the reasons why I went to 32-foot streets.
right.
Makes sense?
I agree with John that we should expand it not just to
Not just
Eastridge, but maybe modify it, cause I work with a gal that lives on whatever street right before Eastridge is.
Sunrise.
And every time there's an event at Concordia, I mean, it's just a nightmare, and so probably almost every street
I would say so.
From Columbia
Yeah.
north
to
or
Columbia
east.
to Eastridge, yeah.
When we looked at today, that's what I thought.
I know it tends to bottleneck there, somebody turning off of Hillcrest and somebody's coming up on any of them streets and they're backed up on Hillcrest and there's more traffic coming and.
Well, I kinda noticed the other night when I was looking at it, it's not so bad until you get like 2 cars, a car that wants to turn left and a car that wants to turn right from the street. And when you have parking on both sides, you basically have a one-way street with a little bit of room left over. So 100 foot back for no parking would allow us to use that lane and other cars to turn in. It'd just be a much safer atmosphere.
Alan?
Would this be something that you would notify affected residents along those streets,
We can,
just to, an FYI?
sure.
I know
I
they're
don't
all-
think they'll be objective to it.
No, I don't either, but
They
people
should
like to know.
I was just wondering, what did you think about that idea?
Of all the streets
Yeah.
on,
I mean,
I-
just put it 100 feet back instead of just taking all the marking off.
I think that's the best solution, because really it is just right around Concordia, and, you know, it's not the whole street, so.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody need to make a motion on this, on what we're gonna do?
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and put 100-foot right away from Columbia to Eastridge Street, and affecting all streets from Columbia east to Eastridge. 100-foot east.
I thought John was gonna come back with a proposal.
I don't think we would, oh, well, I think I agree with that we would wait till John comes back, cause I think Ellen's right, we need to notify the residents. That way if there's any pushback on all, they have their
If we're gonna do a resolution, I have to come up with a
Yes.
resolution.
I agree.
That's the only reason I said we shouldn't take action on it.
So we'd be
So just direct
directing
staff.
you to do that.
Direct, there you go. I'll just add that word, directing.
Thank you.
Direct staff. Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor of the motion of directing staff to look at 100-foot right-of-ways on adjacent streets to Hillcrest by Concordia? Place your votes.
Columbia to East.
Columbia East. Thank you. Motion.
Any in favor of the motion, Beck, Camper, Fritz, Pike, Singleton, Schmidt, Hansley, motion carries.
Item number 5 is a presentation by Blue Stream Energy Solutions on renewable energy options. Adam, is that correct?
That is correct.
Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. You guys move fast. I appreciate that. I do have a quick PowerPoint if, that I presented to Josh.
Computer.
I can kind of start, but this might make
Thanks,
some more
John.
sense. if you could look at this. Again, my name is Adam Herring. I'm with a company called Blue Stem. We're a Nebraska-based company. I have met with Mayor Eichmeyer a couple times over the last year, along with John, to discuss an opportunity that the city of Seward has. The city of Seward, through their current wholesale public power contract, has a 2 megawatt exemption to generate 2 megawatts of renewable energy within their community. This is an opportunity that our company's been exploring for the last few years now. We're working with communities throughout Nebraska, Valentine, Nebraska, Beatrice, David City, Nebraska, along with a lot of rural public power districts. That's the opportunity that I would like to discuss this evening. Okay, so the PowerPoint will help make a little more sense.
I'll turn the projector on.
I got it.
Yeah.
I think.
I heard it beep. It's warming
It's
up.
blinking.
Which one?
Can you see Mark?
Thank you. Okay, so as,
I'm gonna change it.
okay. Again, we're a Nebraska-based company. We were started in 2008. We were created out of a 90-year-old Nebraska-based company called Boyd Jones, which is a general contractor. The highlighted counties are where we currently have projects within the state of Nebraska. We were the first company in Nebraska to take advantage of the renewable energy exemption that Seward has, and that was with Valentine, Nebraska. What we're talking about today is what I call wholesale distributed generation, and that's generating electricity at the point of consumption. So all of our projects generate electricity locally, and it's used right at within the community. The projects are connected to the current electrical system, and a lot of our customers are interested in doing this because of the economic activity that comes with generating electricity locally. Our company takes a value-focused approach. The benefit to renewable energy is there is a free fuel source. Because there is a free fuel source, we can lock into our prices for up to 25 years. So there's financial advantages to locking into prices for over 25 years. That is really the focus of our program. I keep those last three things crossed out, not because they're not important to us, but it's not what drives our company. We are focused on the financial advantages of these projects, and I do not have an expectation that our customers would do anything unless they're gonna save money with our projects. We're a little bit different in the fact that we're just not a developer. Our company develops, finance, owns, and operates these projects for the long term. So when we enter into an agreement with our customer, these are 15, 20, 25-year projects, and we actually own and operate them. So what has changed? The exemption that Seward, Valentine, Beatrice has been around since 2003. These projects did not really make sense until a few years ago, and a couple things have changed. The cost of renewable energy has dropped dramatically. With that, the cost of wholesale electricity has continued to go up across the Midwest. So it's really been this dynamic effort on both ends, and it was about 3 or 4 years ago where these projects really started to make sense for customers like Seward. Renewables as a financial hedge. Again, the opportunity for these projects is the ability to lock into prices for 25 years, and it acts as a hedge against your overall electric purchases. So this is a diagram of a customer similar to the city of Seward that we're working with. And if you can see, that's a 25-year deal. It's a wind energy deal. But you can see the savings on the right-hand column over the course of the 25 years of the community. So if wholesale rates go up 4, 5, or 6%, the savings get greater and greater. Again, it's the ability to lock into the price of a certain percentage of your electric purchases, and that's where the value comes into play. There's a lot of stuff going on with wholesale rates right now. A lot of our customers are a little concerned about where their wholesale rates are going. These are just, and Beatrice is on there, but this is for Seward, it still applies. These are some of the issues that we're dealing with in Nebraska and where we're seeing that upward pressure, making some more local generation a more valuable option. And I can discuss those in length. Those are just some of the issues that's going on within the state and within our country. Some additional benefits. There's no upfront cost to the project. There's no additional debt. There's a lot of economic activity around our projects, from construction to operations and maintenance. Some of our customers are using the green image to attract businesses to their community. These projects do pay property tax. The operations and maintenance risk, the city does not have to take any of those on. Most of our communities, we have contracted with local companies during the operational phase, and then there's additional sales tax revenue that comes from these projects. So that's kind of a quick overview of the program, and again, I had met with Mayor Eichmeyer a couple times, and the goal of tonight was just to come introduce the topic, answer any questions, and see if there's any interest in the community with pursuing, the idea and looking into the opportunities specific to Seward. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
No, you guys just work with the wind, or you get into methane gas and
We,
solar?
so, in your current, the contract in Nebraska says you have 2 megawatts of renewable energy, so it's gotta be renewable. Our company has done wind and solar projects. We are working on our first methane project, in Lancaster County. In our area of the state, the economic opportunity right now is with wind energy. Solar is right behind it, and methane, we're still trying to kind of figure out with it. But we're open to anything, any technology. It's really what resource you have and what works best for the community.
So from a wind standpoint, you're obviously talking windmill. I mean, to reach the 2 megawatt scenario, are we talking 1 windmill, 2 windmills, 3?
So, for example, the city of Valentine, it's about 2 miles outside of town. We put up a 1.85 megawatt GE machine. Underground collection system comes back into town. So there's that, they got to 1.8 megawatts of their 2 megawatts. So that wind turbine, when it turns, the community uses that energy first, and then to supplement it, they go back to their wholesale provider to firm that power up.
Who pays for the load management infrastructure?
The project does.
So that's you?
Yeah, so that's all part of the project cost. Our customers, what they do is they purchase the electricity that's provided by the generator. All the interconnection costs up to the metering point is part of our project cost.
What is your siting process?
Siting process, it's a dynamic one. So, we need to know first we need to identify the technology. Does the community wanna look at solar? Do they wanna look at methane? Do they wanna look at wind? So first we look at that. The different technologies would lead us to different sites. But it really at that point is a community effort. I don't expect, a wind turbine to be sitting right in the middle of town. You need to get out of ways. A lot of times if you have an industrial site, there's a lot of good load around that site. So maybe, that would be a place we wanna look and go, half a mile and a half out of town. We have to find willing landowners, to put these projects on. And then make sure that the resource, is gonna work. There's wind there, it's not shaded if it's a solar project. So it's pretty, it takes a while. There's community input too, we need to make sure that the community appreciates, where it's going. On the flip side, they're not that big a project, it's not like we're putting up 200 wind turbines outside of town.
Now, if a big business decides to take ownership in this, do they get shared usage out of the wind generation?
So, we have not done that yet. I'm not against that concept. In the way electrons work, I don't know if we could say, they got the actual electrons from, the wind turbine, but they could be a participant in that. These projects produce renewable energy credits. They're called RECs. That's a lot of times how corporations participate in these projects, and so you kind of get out of the electricity, and it's another opportunity for corporations to do.
I was just gonna add, I talked to Adam before Christmas, I think it was. We kind of went through and did some preliminary siting. One of the places we looked at is at South Second Street where we have our sewage pumps. We own some land out there, and it's directly across the street from Tenneco, which would make it a nice line shot, and it would give you guys the RECs.
And that's where
And that would be a possibility of having two. The one, I wouldn't say it's a drawback, but there is a side effect to the wind generators, is they do make a loud howl. And so you don't want them in town, and that's a pretty remote area. Basically it's farmland.
Yeah.
Without too many farmers around.
Yeah, because if there was a benefit to the industry
Yep.
to get some of the reusable energy,
Yep.
you might get buy-in.
Yep. And we're all for those conversations and those opportunities.
You were talking about your 25-year cost reduction. How heavily is your company depending upon the tax credits from the government?
Sure. So right now the tax credits are expired. They've been around since 1993. The first George Bush brought them into play. They've expired and come back multiple times. I'm not sure if they're going to come back this time or not. I think we're to a point on the wind side of things that the industry can stand on its own. And so we're not that dependent at this point. The solar credits are around until 2016, so there's a little more time on those. The solar industry still needs those tax credits to be cost competitive, especially in this part of the country. What happens is, if the tax credits are there, the price of everybody's prices go up. You know what I mean? And so when they go away, usually price, on the supply chain, through GE or Siemens, the prices go down. And so if they would choose not to renew them at the end of this year, my expectation is we would see lower prices through the supply chain, and we would be right back where we're at, talking to our customers. So it's important to us, but we know enough about the industry that we've really chosen to take the long-term view of this, and we don't think it's totally dependent long-term on the subsidies.
This, it basically comes to the community free of charge, with the obligation of the 25-year commitment.
Yep. So, yeah, there's no upfront cost to the community, okay? So we're gonna finance this piece of equipment over a long time. Now, what we're doing is we're asking for a commitment, just as you give a commitment to your current wholesale supplier. The difference is, we show you our price on day one, and we show you our price on day 25, or year 25, excuse me. And that's the benefit to renewable energy. So you get to see your prices over the 25 years. I mean, that's the financial opportunity with renewables. It's not the end all. I can't power the whole community with the wind and the sun because we can't count on it all the time. But there's a percentage there where it makes sense. And it's how much percentage works, you know, for a community. And then it's the ability to lock into those prices.
How does that affect our relationship with our current power supplier when we're buying less? I mean, they obviously have a demand, and I don't mean to put words in anybody's mouth, but when we talked about water once, it's like, or I think it was the energy, where they had to do with air conditioning or something, where it was like, if everybody did it at this time, I could give it to you cheaper, but they don't do it at that time, they do it at a different time. So it's like the more demand, the cheaper it is for us, and now if we have less demand, what is that gonna do, or the cost on that side?
Good question. So, that's why there's a cap, you know what I mean? They've capped it at 2 megawatts, because, you know, not to get out of control. There's some opportunities for your wholesale provider if everybody does it, you know what I mean? Because it lessens some of the demand from the system. But we are, in all our projects, working with, under your current contract. This rule was developed by the Nebraska Public Power District, and it's an opportunity for the city of Seward, you know, contracting through them. You know, there's a reason that it's not open-ended, that you can't do 10 or 15 megawatts, but this is an MPPD program. We have a good relationship with MPPD. We have a project with them.
What would happen if electric rates drop? Are we still locked in at that price?
Yep, so that would be the one risk to the community, you know, if your wholesale electric rates would drop over the course of 25 years. Over the course of 100 years, we've seen substantial decreases 2 or 3 times at the wholesale level. I don't think it's, you know, I mean, I don't think it's a realistic, or it's a risk you need to understand, but it's kind of like everything else.
It's there.
It is there, yeah. You know, if the prices at the wholesale end would drop dramatically, you might be paying a little more for this energy.
John, did you still have something?
Yeah, my question, now for maintenance wise, you know, there's been hearsay that it costs more in maintenance than what you get out of the wind generation. Is that true?
I would say that was true 15 years ago. So, we are a very conservative Nebraska bunch. If you would have told me I would have been in the wind industry a decade ago, I would have called you crazy. We've looked at this industry very hard for years now. It's still new, you know, but it's maturing, and there is a supply chain in the Midwest now to support these wind turbines. Every time another wind project goes up, the supply chain gets stronger, and those maintenance costs come down. We do have the infrastructure of a 90-year-old construction company that allows us to make these commitments and maintain and operate these projects. It's not for everybody. You know, you need to be a 24/7 operator. They always seem to go down on Husker Saturdays. But those costs are all coming into play.
Now, the next question is, if the city would choose not to do this avenue, what if a company went on their own and decided to buy the wind generation through you? Would the city be able to, could we sell the energy to the city?
So as a private entity, I cannot sell retail electricity in the state of Nebraska.
Okay.
If the city of Seward wanted to purchase this and do something and offer, you know, green energy to a company or recruit a company, you can do that, and we can help you, you know, get there. But I can't come in and just start picking up your customers.
Helen, you still have something?
My question was answered, thank you.
But there, go ahead.
After we talked to Adam, one of the things that we looked at is the possibility of 2 of the wind generators, because each one has a cap of 2 megawatts.
Yep.
And that's an MPPD deal. It's just like if you put up a small wind generator, they limit you to the size of KW you can put up in your backyard. And they put a cap on these, because they don't want to see the customers go away. But for us, if we were to effectively produce it, and with Tenneco out there, I think we could easily handle the 2 wind generators.
What is 2 megawatts power? I mean, like a Tenneco? I mean, could they would use all of it, or
I'm
do
assuming,
they have?
I'm quasi-familiar with your company, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that their load is pretty consistent with some.
You'd probably be looking at, what, maybe $100,000 in savings over that time, 25 years?
Well, some of our projections
Better be higher than that.
can be higher than that.
No, I'm being conservative.
Yeah. I mean, but we're really seeing the opportunity for savings, you know, because of where we're starting, and then the ability to lock into that price. And it's no knock on the coal industry, nuclear, natural gas. They just have commodity risk. There's no way that they can lock into prices, you know, like renewables can. And it's only because we don't have fuel costs. So we're not subject to that commodity risk. That allows us to have a fixed price project. And it's starting to come into play for communities like Seward. We, you know, we're not gonna bring a bunch of jobs to the community, you know, we'll just get out and say that. But what I call it economic activity. There's landowner payments to the city, to a corporation, to a landowner. We would contract with local electricians immediately for the life of the project. Data companies, internet companies, we use those a lot. These are big computers. So there's just a lot of activity that comes with these that does bring good dollars into the community. And then, you know, the goal is to lower the rates for all your ratepayers in your community over the course of 25 years.
Paint one. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
So is this gonna be something that you're going to be having a suggestion that you're coming back to the council with?
The only other thing that I wanted to do was talk to Phil Euler, who's to just see exactly what 4 meg of power will do for the longevity of our rate program.
Show the cost versus the savings.
Right.
Yep.
You know, the other piece where you're talking about where, out by Tenneco out there, if that's where you were looking to put this, I mean, from a noise level, have you not been around one? I've seen lots of them.
Sure.
Not been physically around one to experience whatever the noise level is. I mean, what would the impact be on the rail campus?
Well, you know, you're almost a mile away,
But
say half mile away. I don't think it would be effective on that. I think the proximity is what, within 200, 300, 500 feet?
because you don't wanna be over 80 dB.
Yep, exactly, yep.
Because then you're getting into situations where people are not gonna be happy with you.
Definitely, and with all our projects, before anything was ever signed, we perform noise studies. And what it does is it shows you where the turbine's at, and there's rings that go out, and if you're standing right underneath the turbine, you know, you can hear it. As the rings go out, it's decibel levels. When you get into the 35 decibels, which is the outer ring on our study, that would be much quieter than an air conditioner. I think they compare it to a whisper in a library. You know, so, you know, we do all that. I always say our job, we're not in the business of pissing people off. You know, our sighting, we'll stay away from people so we don't encroach or, you know, cause harm to people.
And how tall are they?
So good question. On the wind side of things, and I don't wanna lose focus on the solar, because that, you know, that is coming, and there might be opportunities there. There might be a combination opportunity to put up a wind turbine or solar. But on the wind side, where we have seen most of the economic opportunity, we only deal with the big wind turbines, because they are the most credible machines from a maintenance standpoint. So we work with General Electric, and these machines would be 80 meters in the air. So these are the big machines you see on at the big wind farms, if you drive through Iowa. So,
No issues with our expanded airport?
Well, that would be the other
Yep.
thing, is that 300 feet, we have to make sure it's out of our airport approach.
so we would
But I
go.
think we're okay over there.
We go through the FAA on all our projects, we have to get permits and they have to look at all that, so. We just can't be in your runway.
Anything else? We'll be hearing from you again sometime, John?
Yep.
On this?
Yep, I'm pursuing it.
Thank you.
And then the next thing you probably ought to look at is some energy grant savings, if we would go that way, because I know that there is some out there that you
Yep.
might be able to address that to reduce the cost.
Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'll leave some business cards up here if anybody has any other questions for me, just let me know.
So we will skip number 6 until Josh gets here. He's close, so he'll be here shortly. Item number 7 is consideration of a resolution authorizing equipment lease agreement with Union Bank of Trust. Mr. Hume.
Okay, we contacted Manelli and Wagner. working on, what are we talking about, drainage?
No, the lease
Nope.
agreement.
Oh,
This is
lease,
leases.
okay, never mind. More leases, you said number 6, and I said,
Skip 6, sorry. Kind of
okay,
sheepish of you.
more leases, the 2 more leases, we got 2 brand new Toro mowers. And they were in the vicinity of $80,000, the street department's gonna pick up another brand. But we decided to go with the Toro, which took about $8 grand off of each one of those mowers. And instead of buying the mowers outright, we're leasing them for, is it 3 year?
4 years.
Then you gotta have, maintain the hours, what's the hour limit on it?
There's no other than.
You don't know hour limit? Doesn't have anything going over?
No, the only thing at the end of 3 years, we have the option to buy it or we could trade in for a new one, or, yeah, that'd be the 2 options.
And they're diesels, huh?
They are diesel, and there's no more belts or anything to them, they're all have hydraulic motors to them, and they're 4-wheel drive. So the reason the street department went with them is because they're big enough that they can be seen, the hazard lights on them, and they have a 16-foot spread on them, so we make one sweep down one side and down the other side.
Comfort cabs or not comfort cabs?
Minor comfort cabs.
Kelly, did you look at this?
The old mower that the rec department has, we're gonna sell independently.
Yeah, I mean, the ones you got now, the big red one now covers a lot of area quick, so on this here, do we gotta just do a motion to accept, or what are we doing on
It's
this?
a resolution.
It's a resolution,
Okay.
so, but I have a question for Kelly, I guess, as I read through the resolution, I'd highlighted this, cause it's a 4-year lease. Item number 7 in the resolution references the fiscal year of lease is from October 1, 2015 to September 30, 2015.
That was my typo.
Is that supposed to be 4 years in that?
Well,
Sounds
just a
2019.
fiscal
Just a
year.
fiscal year.
Yeah, so it's
So
actually
the-
October to September is all we're saying.
Yeah, so I reviewed this, and the most important section is section 4905, which is the non-appropriation. So this lease, the continuance of the lease is contingent upon there being an appropriation each year for the lease payments. So if there's not an appropriation for the next fiscal year, the lease terminates, you have to return the equipment.
Now, is there a reason we went to 4 versus 36?
I'm not sure, I thought it was set up on 36, but.
Well, it's usually common, usually don't hear it much before.
The payment schedule is attachment 2. Which slide? That seems to contemplate it going out through May of 2019, so it's 4 years.
I'm sure you're probably getting a little bit of savings going 48 versus 36. And as long as there's no penalty about going for over for hours, there should be no issue. Warranty wise, when's the warranty up?
Warranty is a 3-year.
It's got 3 years, that's the only thing.
That's
So
why I wanted to stick with the 3 years.
That's that'd be my only concern, because we have a fleet that we lease, and we were a 5-year. Then we went to a 36-month, 3-year. But at the end of the 3 years, the expenses, the maintenance and everything, and the repairs is eating you alive. Now we're going to 2 years, on our leases, because when you're turning them back, it's at the end of the warranty, and that way your cost should outweigh the payment. Cause your maintenance at the end really gets you hurt. So,
The warranty and the lease on this one's kind of screwy, because typically speaking, like when we lease from Caterpillar, they do the warranty, they do the lease and whatever. This one, we bought it from Midwest Turf. Midwest Turf put us in touch with Union Bank. And so Union Bank is actually doing the lease for us. And they wanted to do the 4-year, whereas 3-year was the warranty that Midwest Turf was gonna provide. We haven't been doing really bad with the Toro that we have, and it's 8 years old. to see a lot of repair bills last year when the street department started using
Are extended warranties available on that, John?
Pardon?
Are you able to buy an additional warranty
it.
on
I
it?
can look into it.
See what the, if that's our concern.
Yeah,
See,
that's
that
like
would be
main
from a different company, it wouldn't be through
Yeah.
Union, I'd have to pick that up through Midwest Trip.
I'll introduce him.
The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2015-10. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So move. Oh.
You introduced it. Can you, Kenny, can you introduce?
Sure.
Move then.
We have a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
All right. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Hanschmidt, Singleton Pike, Fritz, Campbell, Beck, Leeske, motion carries.
All right, thank you, John. I understand we skipped number 6, so we'll go back up to number 6 at this time. This is an update on efforts of City of Seward and/or Seward School District to address water runoff drainage issues on Star Street properties that borders the Seward Elementary School and the Seward Middle School. Councilmember Beck, this was your item. Did you want to say anything?
Property owners on Star Street had indicated that they would like to speak before the council, get an update, and just see where the progress, if any progress has been made on the negotiations, and we're going from here. Again, their concerns have not gone away and are not going away, and they'd like to see, some movement on this project.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide an update. I don't have a lot of information, and this isn't a public hearing, so we don't tend to have public comments unless they're clarifying questions or something of that nature. But basically, we were put in the position of, I guess, facilitating this situation and trying to assist the parties involved, and primarily the homeowners who had this issue regarding the water runoff. So as part of that role, we've been trying to gather and provide information. And so I think a couple of the pieces of information, John, do you have we did ask an engineer for well, not a report, but more or less a proposal on how he would address the situation, what the cost would be. And so I asked John to have copies of that in case anyone wanted to see a copy of that. I believe that dollar amount was somewhere around $20,000, is that right? And so that was the one piece of information we said we would try to collect. The other thing that we did come across that John actually had discovered, granted this situation occurred, or the development occurred more than 20 years ago, and so over time, the people involved go away, memories fade, and in some cases documents lose context, but we were able to find another document that John also has, which indicates that the developer was supposed to get an easement from the school district to address these drainage issues, and that apparently never happened. I asked John to check with the property title to see if an easement had ever been filed, and it had not. So with that information, it starts to look less like the school district is responsible and looks more like the developer failed to do something. Now again, that was 20-some years ago. There might be a perfectly good explanation why that didn't happen. We've not been able to find anything regarding that. Is that fair, John, from what you discussed?
Right.
Okay. So at this point, I don't really have much to add. If there's additional information that the residents of Star Street, or anyone for that matter, would like from us, we should try and get that information. But I don't know at this point that from the administration standpoint, we don't see the city as being responsible. And with that requirement to get an easement, which never happened, I don't know that the school district would be in a position either. But again, we're not a court, we're not in a position to weigh all of this and make that determination. I've used the example before that when we deal with typical nuisance issues like grass being too tall, we can measure that. We know that what the ordinance says, and if a neighbor complains about your grass being too tall, we'll go out there and inspect it. And as the property owners, it's clear that you're responsible to maintain your grass. When you're dealing with something like water runoff, which can cover multiple property owners' property. While the assumption is if you're at the bottom of the hill, that the person at the top of the hill must be responsible, that's not always the case. And so we don't have enough, at this point, we're not in a position, I guess, to do anything else, unless the council directed us otherwise. So that's sort of the update I have. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that from the council or the public to clarify that, but that's sort of where we've evolved as far as this issue. Yes, Charles?
So, a clarifying question then, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying with the information that you currently have, it appears that the developer is most responsible because they failed to follow the steps that the planning commission asked them to, and so the homeowners would need to get their remedy from the original developer?
I'm not saying anyone is responsible, I'm just saying that with the direction that was given to the developer, apparently, at the time, the developer was supposed to get an easement. Now, that didn't happen. I guess the developer would have to explain why that didn't happen. I'm not saying the developer's responsible or not, or anyone's responsible, it's just, it's a situation that is not obvious as grass growing in someone's yard, is what I'm saying.
And I guess that scenario would suppose that had they gotten the easement, you wouldn't have a water problem, but that's an assumption. Maybe they would have gotten an easement, maybe you still would have the water problem, so.
Yeah, I can't predict if even with an easement on that parcel, that whatever would have been done to address the runoff issue would have been sufficient. I can't
Yeah.
predict that, but I know that didn't happen, and as such, we don't know for sure if it would have been sufficient. That's why we also have the engineer's report or proposal that says if he were to fix the situation, that's how he would do it, and his estimate of what it would cost. So, yeah.
Had these, I'm sorry,
That's right.
these numbers been forwarded to the school district?
Yes.
For consideration?
They have seen these numbers. I don't know about consideration. I was going to provide this information to the homeowners as well as the school district, so everyone has the same information. Yes, Ed?
On this 1993 document that has Van Oyen's name on it.
What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
This one here, the
Yeah.
1993 memo, I guess it's a memo. It was basically saying that the Seward County Housing Corporation, that's what I'm assuming SCHC is, will need to negotiate a stormwater drainage agreement. But then it also says that they were asking for the city to create an improvement district. So I guess two of my questions is, A, did the city create an improvement district
I don't know.
in that situation? And then B, did they negotiate a storm water drainage agreement with the school district?
We'll start at the minutes that followed what this was addressed to. And the minutes basically just clarified that Jerry Hayne from JEO stood up there and he said that all the water was supposed to be taken down the property line, make the wrap through a grassy indication, and that it was gonna be okay. The scribbling that you see at the bottom, I shouldn't say scribbling, that's Dan Berlowitz's.
I recognize it.
And quite frankly, I wasn't around when all this happened, so I don't know. There was a, improvement district, but it was for the water, sewer, and streets. Not for the water drainage.
But water, sewer, street, that's not stormwater?
Stormwater on the street.
Is separate from,
I don't think anybody addressed what was coming in from adjacent lands, except for Jerry Hayne, who said all that water was gonna be
Right.
collected in this grassy knoll and make this turn.
so irregardless now, and you've got the numbers of what, $20-some thousand, I guess it looks like, right?
25 with engineering.
So is anybody gonna be trying to work out some sort of compromise, maybe between the city and Seward County Housing Authority? Cause really, wasn't it their development that kind of created the issue? And
Certainly
not
was.
necessarily the school district?
Right. I think, It's the property line divided in two, yeah. That's the problem.
So is that where we need to go? To try to get a resolution?
Well, we just got this letter from Manelli and Wagner, and I sent it up to Dr. Barnes today. I got it Tuesday, I wasn't here Monday. And, so we're just at the stages of getting together. We had one meeting once before, a couple weeks ago, and I suspect after this information, we'll have more meetings, and we're continuing to work on it and see if, we can get a workable solution.
I don't believe, is the developer still around?
John Thomas, it was kind of a combination of deals. This was an SCHC deal, then they hired John Thomas this week. He was kind of the overseer, but he really was just a builder. He didn't have much to do with it. It was all mostly SCHC that was the developer. Problem being is you didn't have people that had the capacity to develop it. Basically, they were bankers. And so, and they put John Thomas out of business because they kept starting houses and telling him to stop. And he finally had 7 or 8 houses going, and he had to stop and didn't get paid for any of them. They put him into bankruptcy.
So that's part of the challenge, is that
That's it.
you can't really go to that developer and ask them why that didn't happen. So, Chris, you had a question?
And Jerry Hayne from JEO is no longer with JEO, so.
Sid already asked one of my questions, but my other question is, maybe this is my lack of understanding. I mean, did we have a planning commission back in '93? Did we have a plot that was approved? Did that plot not have addressed the drainage or not?
I can tell you.
You were on council then, weren't you?
It was designed at the time for the current runoff. Okay, whenever everything was designed, it met all the current runoff, and then as time went on, we kept adding and adding more to Star Street, and I don't think they thought it was gonna go that big, and that's a lot of our problem. It was designed for the current, but not for the future. It wasn't designed, it met the needs of the time, when they designed it.
You know, and hopefully I'm not mixing everything we've talked about here, but I
Again, I guess, you guys, this is a great discussion, but, you know, you guys aren't engineers,
Right.
and remember what Josh said, you guys aren't a judge or a jury determining, you know, who's at fault here or what the liability is, so just keep that in mind in discussions.
I'll take that as shut.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I was sitting there telling something else.
All right. Ellen, is there anything else?
I don't have it. Do any of the residents have any questions to clarify or anything like that? I think we're looking forward to seeing what the school district says, and we appreciate all of your efforts. I know you've really been on this, and it's much appreciated.
Keep pursuing it.
Thank you, John. All right, that's item number 6. We did item number 7, we'll now move to item number 8. Consideration on the change of work order adding the wetland mitigation report and design services to the Carroll K Boulevard agreement. John, do you wanna take that?
This is on the Carroll K paving project. The NDOR came back through and said, actually it's a combination deal. There is a wetlands involved in the project, more so than what we thought. Originally, we had taken the vote on where we wanted the trail to be placed, and we asked for it to be placed on the far east side of the gully, where the trail intersects. The feds came back and said, we're not gonna let you fool with the trail. And then we came back to them and said, well, under the fair guidelines of the project, the NDOR and whatever, we have to provide a list of alternatives. If the alternative that works the best is the cheapest, then you have to recognize it. So they went back again and looked at it, and they determined that it wasn't the best possible solution, that it was gonna be on the west side of the gully. And, so that necessitated the wetlands mitigation, because that's where most of the wetlands is. This will actually kind of work in our favor in the long run, because we're gonna need some wetlands mitigation for the Seward Trail. And so what we're looking at doing is providing a wetlands bank further to the east east where we were gonna put the trail, because there is more wetlands down there. And we're gonna delineate the wetlands where we're putting in Carroll Cape, and we're gonna bank it over, further to the east into the north. And then we'll use that for negotiating on wetlands for the trail. If that makes sense? So the NDOR came back and said you need to do the wetlands mitigation. And basically, we don't have any choice. It's like the noise study.
Are there any questions or comments from the council? Otherwise, I entertain a motion.
So,
We have a motion, to approve the change of work order, adding the wetland mitigation report and design services to the Carroll Cape Boulevard Agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of the motion, Ham, Schmidt, Singleton, Pike, Fritz, Beck, Leeske, Camper, no.
Alright, thanks, John. Item number 9 is consideration of an ordinance establishing a deadline for requesting items to be placed on the council agenda. John, do you want?
yeah, when you go to fill out a agenda, a lot of times we're not following the print that's at the bottom of our agenda, and I just feel that, we need to say and do what we do, and if we're going to not uphold what we say at the end of our agenda, paper that we fill out, then we need to modify it, but, that was just my main concern, that, what we say I think we should be doing. And then the consideration was if there was gonna be something that needed to be altered or changed, then Josh should have that authority to do it, what was it, 24 hours? Or up to that?
Yeah, cause state law is up to 24 hours of the meeting. And we've had instances where somebody, they plan the wedding and they forget the liquor license, which I don't know how you do that, but they come in at the very last minute and they wanna be able to get an SDL for that event, so it allows flexibility. John talked to me about this, and I think this is a good ordinance proposal.
Plus, we can always do an emergency item if we really have.
Yeah, that's still an option for the council as well. Yeah, absolutely. Any questions or comments?
Has to be an emergency.
Yeah, not having booze at your wedding, that gets a little
That could be
dicey.
emergency.
Depends who you are, maybe. I've been to some of those weddings. If there's, any questions or comments, I'd entertain, or I'd ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I guess I introduced my own. Yeah, I can.
Okay, did someone else say anything? No questions or comments? Okay. So you're introducing the ordinance, John? Okay. That's right. The ordinance to amend and revise Seward Municipal Code Section 1-600 City Council Agenda, posting notices and items, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2015-08, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
Move.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Singleton, Smith, Ham, Pike, Fritz, Camper, Beck, Leeske, motion carries.
This is ordinance number 2015-08. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2015-08 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your vote. Please display the vote.
Voting in favor of the motion, Beck, Camper, Fritz, Pike, Singleton, Schmidt, Ham, Leeske, motion carries.
This is the last ordinance for this evening, so I'll need one final motion to make this ordinance a part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of the motion, Pike, Singleton, Schmidt, Ham, Fritz, Camper, Beck, Leeske, motion carries.
Thanks, John. John Hughes, where are you at? Item number 10, capital projects update.
Okay, as we stand here, we now have fiber brought in from Great Plains into this building as well as City Hall. We have installed the internet connection between the two. If you remember from the last meeting that we had, where we did a test on the old system, on a good day was about 2.37 megs of transfer. 16.8. And as soon as we put the dark fiber in, we'll probably be going into the 22s. So it's a significant increase. Building and planning, we're reviewing the County Justice Center for plan review, CIP info for 2015 and 16. Last week, the city did a GIS presentation.
Go back.
I'm sorry, what?
Go back to your last one about the new Justice Center.
Plan review,
Yeah. Are you bringing in consideration, because one of the things that we know we just talked about was water runoff. And that's going to be a huge item, I assume.
you're probably gonna see the first underground storage
Okay.
in the city of Nebraska.
So we are looking in.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Question.
Let's see. We made a presentation to Concordia University. We kind of left out because Brandon works for the university, so he got to do the presentation and dazzle his fellow classmates. Street Department insisting on the Cedar and Jackson Street project. As of today, the intersection at Jackson going into Hughes Brothers has been paved. Within a week's time, we'll be allowed to drive on it. And probably Monday, we'll start working on Cedar Street. Ordered a new road grader for lease, starting to paint crosswalks and school crossings, and following that, we'll probably go into downtown spruce up for the 4th of July. Electric department's working on 3-phase projects that were scheduled for replacement, and we also installed a new transformer bank at Hughes Brothers. Water wastewater department, they're finishing up the pool repairs and pouring concrete probably tomorrow or the next day. And they did a digester refurbishment, Park and Recs, or
Digester. You know, we had an emergency agenda item on that, how many years ago? We're not gonna be sitting in a situation we did there again.
that's why we're working on it right now.
'Cause that was a pretty big hit for the city.
Yeah, no, Tim's doing a pretty good job out there doing maintenance. And the digester before is one of the things that had been overlooked, and he's taken active participation. Tim's been doing a pretty good job. Park and Recs department repairing the picnic shelter at Memorial Field.
John, I got 2 quick things if I may. Where are they at on fiber? Are they done with the city, or they're only done with the buildings you mentioned?
No, they're
still-
probably maybe, they did us first. They're probably 25%, 30% in. They're waiting for some of the, what do you call it, the underground, they're not tunnels there. Vaults, to come in.
So do we, when they're in town working, are they here daily? I'm looking to somebody have contact with them, because I
I do
have
when they come
I have a
into town.
concern from my building.
Yeah.
And when they start coming down the alley, any potential oops that they may create for me, that doesn't just affect me, but
Quite a few.
many other locations that we process for.
No, when they come in town to start installing belts, they'll come to me first, and we map out where they're going.
If I can get a 24-hour notice, so I can
Sure.
notify my folks in case something goes wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, apparently the vaults that they use are manufactured by a company that uses a peculiar sand, and they ran out of sand. So they're waiting for the new vaults to be delivered as soon as they know they're back on track.
Any other questions for John? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to accept his report.
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Yes, did you second it?
Yeah.
You display the votes?
Pike, Singleton, Twin, Fritz, Campbell, Beck, Leeske, motion carries.
Thanks, John. Item 11, future requests for council agenda items or administrative action.
I think we need to have some, I was approached by somebody that we had an incident that happened, and I don't think any of us knew about it, at the ball fields. I think we bring us an update on that. Somebody got hit down there by one of our, sports utility vehicles.
Okay, we can,
I think it needs to come back to us to tell us.
okay, yeah, I'm not aware of anything,
Okay.
so we can get a report back to you. Do you want it just as a report?
Yeah, this is a report.
We can include it in the packet or whatever? Okay. Any other items? Alright, we'll move on into item 12, announcement of upcoming events. May 15, we have the retirement celebration for Annie Dominic. This is from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Civic Center, West Fireplace Room. Of course, the 4th of July is on July 4th this year. Charles, do you have anything?
marketing workshop at the Civic Center Thursday night,
Okay,
and citywide garage sales in Seward this weekend.
okay, anything else we're missing? Otherwise, thank you, and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. That's always the quickest motion to get.
Yeah.
Got a motion and a second, please register your votes, please display the votes.
We've done sooner if we've been here.
That's a
I'm
new,
slow playing, see,
still playing it?
we got through the first